A few months into her marriage, Sarah decided to invite Susan over to her new home. She was excited to show her best friend what she had achieved. When Susan arrived, her eyes scanned every corner of the large, well-furnished home. "Wow, Sarah," Susan said with a forced smile. "This place is amazing." Sarah beamed. "Thank you. Come, let me show you the kitchen. I designed it myself." As Sarah moved around proudly, Susan followed, nodding but growing silent. Deep down, something bitter was growing in her heart. In the following weeks, Susan became a frequent visitor. She often borrowed Sarah's jewelry, wigs, expensive handbags, and high-heeled shoes. Sarah gave them freely, thinking their childhood bond was still unbreakable. One evening, Susan sat on Sarah's couch, admiring herself in a mirror wearing one of Sarah's diamond-studded earrings. "These look good on me, don't they?" Susan asked. Sarah chuckled. "They do. You can wear them to the office tomorrow if you like." But Susan was not admiring. She was comparing. Envy was eating her alive. Then something strange began happening. Sarah started complaining of headaches and chest pain. She dismissed it at first, thinking it was work stress. "Maybe it's just fatigue," she told Stephen one evening lying on the couch. "I've been so busy lately." Stephen looked concerned. "Let's go to the hospital tomorrow." They went. Blood tests, scans, and checkups showed nothing unusual. A week later, Sarah started laughing for no reason. Then came the screaming. At midnight, she would wake up and accuse Stephen of plotting to harm her. "Why are you trying to kill me?" she screamed one night. Stephen was shaken. "Sarah, what are you saying? You want to take my house, you and your other woman." "Which woman?" "Sarah, I love you. What's happening to you?" Sarah began pulling at her hair, banging her head against the wall. Stephen called doctors, more tests, still nothing. Then one day, Sarah packed a small bag, walked out of the house barefoot, and vanished. She didn't report to work. Her phone was off. Stephen searched every hospital and police station. Nothing. Back at the cement office, Susan pretended to be shocked. She just left? That's so strange. Poor Sarah. But at night, she smiled to herself. Stephen was devastated when Sarah vanished. He searched everywhere. Hospitals, police stations, even local shelters. Days turned to weeks. One afternoon, in despair, he called Susan. "I don't know what else to do," Stephen said over the phone. "I can't find Sarah. She just walked out and disappeared." Susan's voice was soft and comforting. "You need someone to talk to. I can pass by after work." That evening, Susan arrived at Stephen's home, dressed modestly but attractively. She brought food, sat with him, and listened. The more they talked, the more Stephen felt at ease. She was laughing and shouting at night. It didn't feel like her anymore, Stephen said, his head in his hands. "Maybe she just broke down," Susan said gently. "Too much stress." In the following days, Susan visited more often. She helped clean up, brought groceries, and even answered some of Stephen's work calls. Slowly, Stephen felt comforted by her presence. 2 weeks later, Stephen shocked everyone. He married Susan. The wedding was quiet, just a few close friends and family. Judith attended proudly. Susan moved into Sarah's house and took over Sarah's position as manager in Stephen's company. Meanwhile, no one knew where Sarah was. Back in the village, Mama Zena grew restless. Her daughter hadn't called in weeks. Calls to her phone went unanswered. "I have to go find her," she told a neighbor. "Something is wrong." Zena packed her things and took a long bus ride to town. When she arrived at Stephen's house, the new guard stopped her. "I'm Sarah's mother," she said. "Madam Sarah no longer lives here," one guard replied. "I need to speak to her husband. Please tell him Zena is here." The guards refused. Zena sat on the pavement outside the gate. Hours passed. Evening came. Just as Stephen's car arrived, she ran up to him. "Stephen, my daughter! Where is she?" Stephen stepped out of the car, surprised. "Mama Zena!" She grabbed his arm. "Tell me, where is Sarah?" Stephen's face fell. "I don't know. She left. She was not well." "You replaced her. You married another woman," Zena said in disbelief. I didn't mean to. I was confused. "She disappeared," Stephen said, tears in his eyes. Zena ran through the streets. She asked neighbors. She showed photos. Finally, one old vendor recognized Sarah. "She sleeps in that abandoned building across the street. I've seen her digging in trash bins." Zena rushed to the building. There, in a dark corner, she found her daughter. Sarah was filthy, weak, and pregnant. Her clothes were torn. "Sarah!" Zena cried. Sarah looked up blankly. "Who are you?" "I'm your mother, baby. It's me." Mama Sarah started laughing, then crying, then vomiting. Zena held her, weeping. "I'm taking you home." She took her daughter to a nearby clinic. The doctor confirmed it. Sarah was pregnant and mentally unstable. Zena took her back to the village. She had lost everything, but her mother had not given up. The sun had just risen over the hills of Mbuyuni village when Zena stepped out of her small mud house and looked at her daughter sleeping on a mat. Sarah was no longer the wild-eyed girl she had dragged out of an abandoned building, but she still wasn't fully herself. Her body was thin, her eyes dull, and her mind floated between silence and random questions. "Where is my husband?" she would ask out of nowhere. Zena would sit beside her, stroke her back, and whisper, "Soon, you'll remember everything, my child. Just be patient." The villagers had already started talking. Some said Sarah had been cursed. Others said she was mad because her husband divorced her. But Zena didn't care. Her only goal was to bring her daughter back. One afternoon, she made a decision. "We're going to see Dr. Zumba tomorrow," she told Sarah while feeding her porridge. "He's the best traditional healer around. People say he sees things even doctors can't." Sarah didn't respond. She stared at the spoon like it didn't make sense. Dr. Zumba's hut was deep in the hills, surrounded by trees and herbs that gave off a strong scent of roots and ash. Smoke curled from the thatched roof, and drums echoed softly from inside. Zena knocked on the wooden door. A tall, thin man with white beads around his neck stepped out. His eyes were sharp and his voice was calm. "I've been expecting you," he said. "You know us?" Zena asked, surprised. He nodded. "The spirits speak in dreams." He guided Sarah into a small room with mats, burning incense, and old animal skins on the walls. He placed a cowrie shell rattle in her hands and began chanting. The air grew thick with mystery. For 2 weeks, Zumba gave Sarah bitter herbs to drink and performed long rituals every evening. He tied red and black threads around her wrists and ankles, burned bones in a fire, and sang ancient songs as Sarah shook and cried. Some nights she screamed. Other nights she slept like a rock. Then one morning Sarah woke up and looked around the room with clear eyes. "Mama?" Zena turned quickly. "Yes, my daughter? Where am I?" Tears filled Zena's eyes. "You're in the village with me. Do you remember anything?" Sarah sat up slowly. "I remember Stephen. I remember Susan. Oh my God." She grabbed her head. "What happened to me? Where have I been?" Zena held her tightly. "You were sick. You were cursed. But you're back now." Sarah cried for hours. She asked about her house, her job, her husband. Zena told her everything. How Stephen married Susan, how Susan replaced her, how she was found dirty and pregnant in an abandoned building. No, this can't be," Sarah whispered, standing up with trembling legs. "I need to go back. I need to see it with my own eyes." The next morning, before Zena could stop her, Sarah boarded a bus to town. She wore a simple dress and sandals. Her eyes were wild with purpose. She got off at the familiar street near her old home. As she approached, her heart raced. The same gate stood tall. The flowers she once planted still bloomed along the driveway. Then the door opened. Susan walked out wearing one of Sarah's old dresses, holding a handbag that Sarah had bought with her first salary. For a second, Sarah froze. Then something inside her snapped. "You thief!" she screamed and ran toward Susan. Susan turned, startled. "Sarah, what are you—" Before she could finish, Sarah lunged at her. She grabbed her wig and yanked it off. She punched, scratched, screamed. "You stole my life!" Susan screamed for help. The guards came running and pulled Sarah off her. "She's mad! Call the police!" Susan shouted. "I'm not mad," Sarah cried. "She used witchcraft. She stole my husband, my job, everything." The guards held her down until a police car arrived. Sarah was dragged into the back, still shouting, tears streaming down her face. As the police car drove away, Susan stood by the gate, breathing hard and fixing her wig. "She's dangerous," she told the officers. "Lock her up before she hurts someone." In jail, Sarah was placed in a cold, concrete cell with 2 other women. No bed, no pillow, just the floor. Her mind raced with anger, sadness, confusion. That night, she clutched her stomach and groaned. The other women looked up. "What's wrong?" one of them asked. "I don't know. I feel pain. Something is wrong." Within hours, Sarah began bleeding. There were no doctors, no nurses, just a female guard who gave her tissue and said, "It happens." Sarah curled on the floor as pain ripped through her body. She cried out for help. No one came. By morning, it was over. She lay in a pool of blood, tears staining her cheeks. She had lost her baby. 2 days later, after Zina pleaded and begged, the police agreed to release Sarah with a warning. She stumbled out of the station, weak and pale, holding her mother's arm. "I need to see Stephen," she said, her voice almost gone. Zina tried to stop her, but Sarah insisted. They went straight to Stephen's office. She pushed open the glass doors and stepped in. The receptionist gasped. "Sarah? Where is he?" "He's in his office." Sarah stormed in. Stephen was at his desk, typing. He looked up and froze. For a moment, his eyes showed something like shock, but then they went cold. "Oh, you're back." Sarah's lips trembled. "That's all you have to say." Stephen stood slowly. "I heard what happened. The fight. You shouldn't have come here." "I lost our baby," Sarah whispered. "I bled in a jail cell." Stephen looked away. "I'm sorry. You replaced me like I was nothing, like I never existed." He didn't respond. "I came here for answers," Sarah said, "for truth, for a chance." Stephen sighed and sat down. Maybe it's too late." That was the moment Sarah knew. She had lost everything. She turned and walked out of the office. Her legs were weak, but she didn't cry. Not yet. She walked past the receptionist, past the guards, into the street. Back to the bus station. Back to the village where at least one person still believed in her. Her mother. After days of weeping, praying, and trying to understand what went wrong, Mama Zina decided to take Sarah to a powerful local pastor. They visited a small village church led by Pastor Ezekiel, a man known for deep prayer and spiritual deliverance. Every day for 2 weeks they prayed, morning, afternoon, and evening. Sarah sat quietly during most prayers, sometimes smiling for no reason, other times crying. Pastor Ezekiel would place his hands on her head and shout in prayer, "Every chain holding her mind, break in Jesus' name." On the 13th day, during an evening prayer session, Sarah suddenly collapsed. She began screaming, shouting names, and shaking. Zina cried out, "My child, my Sarah!" Pastor Ezekiel didn't stop. "She's being freed, don't be afraid." Sarah's body calmed down. Moments later, she opened her eyes and looked around. "Mama," she said softly. "Yes, baby, I'm here." Zina ran and held her. Zina held her tighter. "You've been through a lot, my child." That day in town, Stephen came back from work early and he searched for Susan. She wasn't in the house, but her car was parked. He looked everywhere. Then he heard a strange voice. He followed the sound to the closet. Behind her clothes, he found a secret door. Inside, he found Susan sitting in a circle of red ashes and bones, facing a doll with Stephen's photo. Stephen asked, "What is this?" Susan, in shock while trembling, said, "It's my way of praying." Stephen said, "Why is it hidden? And why is my photo on that thing?" "After pressure," Susan confessed. "My Aunt Judith taught me witchcraft. I used it to take you from Sarah." Stephen was numb as he stood in the middle of the hidden chamber, surrounded by ash, bones, and the doll with his photo pinned to it. The weight of the truth finally sank in. His chest rose and fell quickly. "You used witchcraft on me?" he asked Susan, his voice low but shaken. Susan's face crumbled. "Stephen, I only did it because I loved you. I was afraid of losing you." Stephen's eyes narrowed. "You don't love me. You used me. You destroyed my wife. You and Judith ruined everything." Susan dropped to her knees. "Please, Stephen, don't leave me. I did it for us." "There was never an us," Stephen said coldly. "You're leaving tonight, and I'm filing for divorce first thing in the morning." Susan screamed. "Stephen, please." But he walked away. The next day, Stephen drove to the village. Zena was outside hanging clothes. She froze when she saw him. He got out of the car and walked slowly toward her. "Mama Zena, I've come to ask for forgiveness." Zena stood still, hands on her hips. "You have a nerve coming here after what you did to my daughter." "I didn't know what I was doing. It's like something controlled me," Stephen said, tears forming in his eyes. "Please, I want her back. I still love Sarah." Inside the house, Sarah peeked through the window. She hadn't seen Stephen in months. Her hands trembled. "Mama, who is it?" she whispered. Zena turned. "It's him." Stephen knelt. "Sarah, please come out. Just hear me out, one last time." Slowly, Sarah stepped outside. Her eyes were filled with pain. "You chose Susan over me," she said softly. "You married her, and when I came back, you looked at me like I was dirt." "I was blind, Sarah. Completely blind, but not anymore." Sarah's lips trembled. "I lost our child in a police cell. Do you know how that felt?" Stephen covered his face. "I'm so sorry. I swear I'll never forgive myself." Silence fell. Birds chirped in the distance. Zena finally broke the silence. "Sarah, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but if you still love him, maybe start fresh." Sarah looked at Stephen. "I don't trust easily anymore, but I still love you." They hugged, both crying. Zena wiped her eyes quietly. Back in town, Stephen held a grand party at the real estate office, inviting close friends and colleagues. Sarah stood at the entrance in a navy blue dress. Everyone clapped when she entered. Stephen stood proudly. "Ladies and gentlemen, today I celebrate the return of the true woman behind my success, my wife, my strength, Sarah." Everyone cheered. That same night, Stephen returned home and ordered all of Susan's belongings to be packed. Susan was shocked to find her clothes outside the gate. "Stephen, what is this?" "You were never welcome here. Leave." Even Judith, who had come to visit, was thrown out. "Don't you dare step into my life again," Stephen warned. At the company, Susan was summoned. "I'm sorry, Susan," the HR manager said. "You're no longer needed here." Susan ran to Judith's house, only to be turned away. "I taught you witchcraft, not foolishness," Judith spat. Now deal with your own mess." Susan returned to the village, jobless, homeless, and broken. A few months later, villagers whispered of Susan wandering the roads, drunk, talking to herself. Meanwhile, in the city, Sarah sat on the couch, rubbing her belly. "Stephen, I'm pregnant again." Stephen dropped his coffee. "What, are you serious?" She smiled. "Yes." He hugged her tightly. "We'll do it right this time. I promise the past was painful, but the future was finally peaceful." Please subscribe, like, share, and comment for more sweet stories and joy Mitchie animated stories.